So this is an overview of those scores. I feel like we have seen those PARCC scores presented in graphs, tables, charts, and through every angle out there. So what we did this year is we said, let's look at the data. Because another very smart person on this board once said to me, it's not about the answers, it's about the questions. So what are the questions we see? Well, we look at it and we say, what's the targets? You know what, our 5th grade teachers, whatever they're doing is working. So let's let them keep doing it. Well, now let's start to see, okay, 4th grade math. We're making growth in those 3 to 4s or 5s, but I got a little concerned because we also were moving some numbers down. So if we've got these concerns, these are where we need to focus. We can't focus on everything. It's absolutely impossible. We will do nothing well if we don't find our focus. So what did we do? Well, we knew that our 6th grade math resource wasn't getting it done. So what did we do this summer? We chose a new resource. It's actually the same resource that River Edge and Oradell are using. We started to rewrite our curriculum to make sure that it was scaffolding the skills that our students needed. We continued with our language arts, and one of the things that it's a little bit hard, and I know for Mrs. Lipton it's always a tough one, we're also doing stuff in K2 that's just proactive. It may not show the growth this year, but it is going to show the growth in years to come. But that's not all that we did. And that's not all that we're doing. It's not like, okay, we took the PARCC scores, we looked at them, we said we need to get better, we did these things, okay, let's wait and see now what happens. Instead, we keep working. So, in January, we gave our Navigator B performance, and we know that Navigator is Lincoln's benchmark performance for September, January, and May. So in January, our students are showing growth. Truthfully, they're right on target to score exactly where they did last year. Now I know, but we're supposed to be getting better. Well, here's the good news. Still have 2.5 months. So in that 2.5 months, what do we keep doing? We keep using the data. And that's just the same slide for math. Again, very similar results to last year. But what we really want to do is we really want to look at this bubble group over here. Those are our students that are right on the cusp of passing. So they're the students we really want to look at and say, is it a skill that we just need to fill a hole in? Is there something simple we can do? So what we've started to do at the March 5th faculty meeting, our staff each sat with their class list. This is an example of a class list from Lincoln. And this is specifically a 5th grade math table, and it shows that teacher, their class list, so that's what would be over here, that's blacked out. And then for every student, it shows their 3rd grade PARCC score, their 4th grade Lincolns, their 4th grade PARCC score, their 5th grade Lincolns. And then it does some predictability of how much is that student at risk. Sometimes we're not too worried about what it shows, because if you look at this student over here, this student grew 30 percentage points this year. So it's saying that students are at high risk for failing PARCC, but really only because of who they were as a learner in 3rd grade and 4th grade. If that trend continues, I'm not as worried about that learner. And then we ask the teachers, please don't just look at your class as individuals and their performance, because you need to look at what are we testing. So look at the ones in front of you, not the ones up there. Screenshots are kind of a presentation horror. So right here, you're going to have a list of skills for 5th grade math. And then that teacher can look at how their student did, how their students as a class did on A, on B, and the growth. What we asked those teachers to do was now take that data. Where are you performing the highest? Where are you performing the lowest? What is it that you need to do for your whole class right now? And that's what differentiation is. Identifying what needs to be taught to a whole class, a small group, and one-on-one instruction. What do we need to teach better? And we're not done. The week after conferences, so March 25th, I will be sitting with grade level teachers again, because teaching is a very isolating profession. You are in your room, and you're doing the best that you can do in your room. But sometimes you don't get to know what somebody else might be doing better than you, or what you might be doing better than someone else. So what we're going to start with in March is having an entire grade level of teachers look. Okay, so here's multiplying whole numbers. And this is 5th grade, so there's only 3 math teachers in 5th grade. Well, is there a class that did exceedingly well on a specific standard? Because what did that teacher do differently? Is there something you're struggling with teaching? What can you learn from your colleagues? And then we're going to continue to dig deeper. We're going to take those Navigator B results and we're going to look at the class again. But this time we're going to look at the class through the lens of specific skills. So in this class, only 22% got this question right. So in Lincoln, the teacher can then click on that question and see what it is. Here's what that question was. Well, 55% of the class, 22% got it wrong. 55% of the class, I think, said B. Well, what did they do? They added instead of multiplied to find the volume of the shape. Truthfully, not super surprising, 5th grade hasn't gotten to volume yet. But that also tells me as a teacher, can't skip that lesson. Because if 85% of the class got that, even though I hadn't taught it already, I don't need to teach that lesson. I need to teach it to a small group of students. But in this class, I need to teach volume. And then we're going to take it even further. And we're going to not just look at individual classes, we're going to look at students. So Lincoln allows us to look at one student's report. It allows us to see the green as the questions that student got correct. The red is what they got wrong. Again, as a teacher, you can click on that red, see what the student answered versus what the correct answer is. So in this case, what the student did was they found common denominators, but they never added. So they just found, if you look at the first fraction, they multiplied it. 2 times 9 is 18, 18 45ths. They forgot to add. Could have been very simple. I was going really fast mistake, but I want to check with that student and make sure that's the case and give them more problems of this type. And then Lincoln's still not done. Because then what Lincoln can do is it can tell us, here's a specific question, a specific skill. There were 3 skills on this question. Only 28% of my class got the total number of questions correct. So that's a skill I'm concerned about. But guess what it does? It tells me as a teacher, this red, oh boy, those kids need some significant reteaching in this skill. The yellow, I need a little brush up. This green student, they don't need to work on this skill anymore. Let's let them work on something else. I then click on that problem, and guess what? Lincoln gives me the materials to reteach with that specific skill. So that's what we need to do next. We have the data. We need to use the data to inform our teaching, hoping that by targeting the specific skills with individual students based on what skill each student needs, that it helps us meet that goal of improving performance. So to give us a brush up, because we all, as an administrative team and as a teaching staff, we all don't have the same knowledge base of Lincoln. I never really considered myself a Lincoln administrator of OPS. I have other assistant principals that really loved that role. But you know what? It's good to learn something new. And as I've been playing with it more and seeing more features that I could do, I realized that I'm still not an expert. So we have Julia Dimnich coming in Monday morning to do Lincoln training with our administrative team and with a select group of teachers who can then turnkey that. As I said, the week of March 25th, that team of administrators and teachers will be sitting down with grade levels and with individual teachers to be mining that data. Additionally, we're looking at the bubble students, and that will very likely be the focus of our before or after school Park Academy, which is one of our Title I fund usages. And what I always forget about, I was talking to Mrs. Lynch today, and I said, you know, how are the kids doing? Are you noticing anything? Because she sees every student in the building. She's a great gauge of Oradell Public. And she said, well, let me tell you a little bit about what I'm doing. She said, I'm also doing refreshers on how to navigate the digital platform. Because we forget for our 3rd graders and our 4th graders that you never want to score badly on something because you don't know the test data. And so we're also working on that. So we do have a lot of work to do. And I do anticipate additional growth. We're not there, yet. And what I would ask this board to remember is the power of that word. We live in a community and we have a school where we are pretty focused on doing well. And I have numerous students right now having extreme levels of anxiety. What I talk to them about all the time is stop stressing, because it's not, you can't do it. You can't do it yet. We're getting there, and I believe we will get there. We're just not there yet where we're happy. That doesn't mean we're not working, and that doesn't mean we're not growing.
Any questions or responses?
Yeah, all this data was data from last year, right? We've had this for a while.
The park data from the beginning, yes.
Okay.
The other data is actually from the Lincoln test taken.
But this stuff, these,
Give me a page number.
sorry, like page 4, there's a whole set at the beginning related to 2016
Yes.
to 2018.
What we do after, timing is always a little bit off. After I analyze all our data, Lincoln does an analysis. So Lincoln did this analysis for us.
Okay. So one of the things that is standing out, and I'll mention the page numbers to you guys. So like on page 3, one thing that's very clear to me, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, we have a group of people going from grade 5 to grade 6 that we're starting out as approaching, and 86% of them stayed there. We didn't move anyone up to meeting. That's one of the big goals. It didn't happen that year. And I'm moving all the way over to 16 to 17 is what I'm looking at, the most recent stuff. And in fact, we had 14% that went down. I'm seeing this kind of consistent, so that's in the English language. If you move to mathematics on page 4. Yeah, sure. So grades 5 through 6, ELA, we're looking at the people started as approaching, and 86% of them stayed as approaching. Our goal is to move them to meeting. That's what our goal is. Not only did we, I know that's for this next year. Okay, explain it to me then.
Sure. What this whole table is about people approaching, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in 16, you were using 15, 16 to 16, 17?
I was using 16, 17 to 17.
Okay, then you're fine, but you can't go back the table.
I'm not trying to go back. I'm just saying, you're basically this 86%.
Yes, 86%.
So 0% did we move up. And not only did 0% move up, 14% moved down, correct?
Right.
Okay,
And
so.
that's actually why we have a brand new language arts curriculum in 6th grade. 6th grade is the grade.
It's 5th to 6th though, it
Yes,
sounds like.
exactly.
So we have it in the 6th grade? Oh, you're saying?
No, it's 5th grade, that cohort of students,
Yeah.
you remember Mr. Walsh saying that he didn't remember us scoring that well, scored number 2 in County High.
Okay,
As 5th graders. In 6th grade, they went down to 13
Right.
in County High. So we do have to look at, not our 5th grade curriculum, because our 5th grade, at the end of 5th grade, they're doing it. It's our 6th grade.
I see what you're
Something's
saying.
happened,
I see what you're saying.
and I'm not, it's part of why we're participating in the Scheduling Institute, to look at our scheduling, because I'm not sure what the answer
right.
is.
So, I mean, and I think that I'm probably beating a dead horse on this, but I do want to get it on record saying this. So that's page 3 that we're talking about. Page 4, we see the same thing with that grade 5 to 6 on math. I just mark it as an issue. So we were talking English language, and the same thing on page 5. You see an issue where people were starting at approaching on math, and 30% of them dropped down. We did see some improvement, and I appreciate the fact that we are, as a district, doing a great job, and people are working very hard. But when I see these presentations, I'll just tell you, I would love for it to come with the real. Come with the real issues and tell me this is old data, so what has been done or what will be done.
Right, so what has been done already in 6th grade? We've chosen a math resource, because we said the old math program wasn't getting done, based on this data and based on the trend you're noticing that the year before they also went down.
Right,
Okay?
math and language both
Right.
changed.
Yes, language arts we have, Mrs. Lipton led an entire language arts curriculum update in grades 3 through 6 last year.
And have we looked at our Lincoln data at this point to see?
Yes, and that's what the other slide
Okay.
is at. There are always going to be other variables. That 6th grade, we reduced the section. We went to a class size of 25. We got it for the variable mass. I'll never be able to take out every one of the variables.
Okay.
But I agree, and I see the same trends that you see. That's why I said this slide was so important, is this yellow is where my biggest concerns are. And that biggest concern is from 5th to 6th grade. And I'm not sure yet what the answers are, so all I can do is take a theory, a new math resource might help,
Right.
and then see if that helps.
Just from my perspective, there's a lot of numbers in here, and it's hard to, bring in all at once. So to clearly state up front, as opposed to we're improving everywhere and we're really working hard, just clearly state up front, like we know these are areas.
And that's what this intent.
Even on that, I would suggest like maybe saying these are positive and these are negative, because those are not all positive or not all negative.
So we started to use the new math resource in 6th grade this year, right? Okay, just want to clarify that. Okay. And And this is the same resource that they're using at River Edge now?
And also,
Okay. And then, because that's way before my time, so, and you brought it up, why did we need to cut a section in 6th grade? Is it just,
in 6th grade, it's going to work with online perspective.
Okay.
The research says is that class size doesn't matter. I'm personally wondering, is this class size not matter if you've always been in class for 25, but maybe if you lose to a certain number of attention, because you're in class 18, that is very interesting because they fluctuate. They were actually in class 4 and they went to grade less added students in the fifth, so we got the section, we lost some students in second.
okay.
It's not very like for the course.
Okay.
Mr. Walsh?
I'll use Jeremy's boxes.
That,
Okay.
It's not, this is not right. Because
What page are you on?
on page,
Can you use the mic?
page
Page 3.
86 students, 86% of the students are approaching, and 14% are partially meeting. That means they all fail. That's 100%. We're not that bad.
Could you bring me the page again, Mr. Walsh?
Page 3.
Page 3.
Okay, give me 1 second. because I
Same
lost
box
the
that
page.
Jeremy picked out.
1, 2,
5th grade, 5th to 6th, yellow.
correct.
So there's nobody meeting, nobody exceeding 100%.
No.
So one of the things that's about that, that's only looking at she subsetted it to
Yes.
just the approaching. So like, we haven't looked at it this way, at least as I've seen it before. You're right, if you were looking at the full data set, Mr. Walsh, you would see that we are meeting and exceeding with other students. She subsetted it.
We're doing better.
We definitely are. I think that she subsetted it based on our goal.
Correct.
Because our goal is to move from approaching to meeting or from meeting to exceeding.
You set a goal, so this whole table is only about students who met, scored a 4 in 2017, 2018. So that N number is the total number of students we are talking about for that group. And I do have this data for every single group, but since your goals are about moving, it seemed more appropriate.
So if we had 4 students in approaching,
That's what's
and
better.
one student drops down 1 level, we'd have a 25% swing.
Correct.
Okay, so without knowing the magnitude of these numbers, these are just percentages without really, like, they're
You do
nothing.
get up in that magnitude
We have
because
the
you have
N
the N
numbers
number.
on there.
Where?
So, say you're on the slide Mr. Walsh was
Oh, I
speaking
see.
about, you
I
have
got
the
it.
N number.
I
You
got
are
it.
correct, you are correct, and sometimes that is going to sway the data. Sometimes you're going to see an N number as low as 9.
Yeah, I forgot my
It's okay, your algebra.
population sampling methodology where N equals whatever. I see it now, thank you.
So what did the 2 years before that tell us compared to everyone's angst on
Truthfully,
86?
I will tell you that I saw a lot of growth in 15, 16. doesn't surprise me. And then our growth is pretty stable from 15, 16 to 16, 17, 16, 17 to 17, 18, especially third grade. Like third grade grew tremendously from 14, 15 to 15, 16. Remember, we had a brand new, that's the first 2 years of Park. And while it's not Park this year, it's at least still the same platform. So I don't think that first year, people knew what was coming and what was, our students just had technology and we were giving them an online assessment. So there are a lot of things going on there.
But it's not a bad school in the 2 years before.
No, but that's also like, I mean, if I was to think about what was going on
I mean,
in
we're
a public
basically saying
school,
this year was way worse.
I'm not saying
No,
that.
I'm hearing this, like, we're very concerned, right? That's what we're saying. However, like we're saying, we're changing this, we're changing that. Maybe it's just a dip one year. We've had the curriculum, we've had this, we've had success in it. Sometimes a class just dips one year. And the next year, with the same curriculum, you're gonna see everything.
You could talk about, and that's the fact is, this is one snapshot. It's actually why I like that table from Lincoln, where we can look at a full student over 6 years. Because the truth is, what if a kid was sick that grade? Parents all send their children to school to take state testing, even though they're sick. Okay, because nobody wants them to have to make it up, and it's important. You have a lot of factors going on.
But
We did
everybody
test
does
out-
it in every district.
Well, we also tested right after vacation.
Yes,
We
that's
know-
an issue.
We know that our third grade,
But this is Lincoln we're talking about, right?
that part.
Of this one,
But,
okay.
you know, what I
That's something we should look at.
we
though.
did. So this year, our testing, we're not testing until the last
Which
year.
grade? Third?
We are going to work backwards, so we will start, and I did show this with the staff at the last faculty meeting. I work, because we changed from from Park to NJSLA, the number one thing they changed is they reduced the number of days.
Okay.
So that helps us to test a little bit in a shorter window. We also do have some more technology, so that helps us also to test. I mean, the truth is, if you were to go to Eastbrook School in Parkridge or any of the River Edge schools, they're one-to-one starting in kindergarten. So they can test all their kids at the same time the last week of the testing window. We don't have that, and I don't think we need to. I don't think research is going to say that 1 week makes a huge difference. So we work backwards. We are starting testing, I think it's like April 29th, so it's well after break.
Yeah.
Everybody gets another week. We are starting with third grade. We're giving third grade, I think, 3 days to get started, and then we're starting with either fifth or sixth. We haven't made that decision. 5 days later, fourth will start. A couple days later, whether it's fifth or sixth.
Can I,
Okay, this is Walker. This is Walker.
In reference to the sixth grade math scores, I've been part of the curriculum committee for a number of years, chair for a couple of years, and I know that's been a big push. We've had a number of presentations by Ms. Rowley and by Ms. Bozios regarding the sixth grade and the need to perhaps change. So one of the big steps after a lot of research was to switch their math program to what we presently have this year. And it was in coordination with River Edge and Riverdale. I also remember hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Bozios, that we're talking about looking at how we level the math groups and group them or departmentalize.
Okay, so again, it's about variables. So I said to you that we see a really large increase in our performance in fifth grade. Fifth grade is when we start with 2 teachers. Would we see a greater increase in fifth grade? So I'm not going to jump and say let's departmentalize fifth grade because I think that's it until I fully research that. So when I go, like next week I'll be at Rutgers again at the Teddy Institute, and there are some schools there that are doing it as young as first grade. Do I think developmentally that is good for children? No. And I hope as a board we wouldn't say test scores are more important than children. So I think we have to look at the big picture of that. So it is something we're considering. I talked to River Edge. Our supervisors just had lunch with the River Edge supervisors today to try to understand how's their sixth grade set up versus how our sixth grade set up. Are they doing something differently? I have noticed over the past few years a change in our sixth graders. They are seeming more mature in more middle school when January hits them when I first got here. So I'm really looking at how to make a schedule that meets that also.
just as a formatting, the data here is focused on, obviously, it's math and literacy, and then it's based on reading or approaching. But when you talk about what the numbers mean, you immediately go to grade levels and fifth kids, like in this example, fifth grade kids moving over to sixth grade. The problem, though, is we get so hyper-focused on this one subset of approaching students. Did they move up or did they move down in this transition between fifth and sixth grade? And we forget what the other students are doing. So if you just redo these tables so that you can look at the grades and then compare their math and their ELA and compare the ones who are meeting versus the ones that are approaching, but they're all clustered together so that you can not only see what a specific group is doing, like what we were doing in that one table with 10 students, I believe, but we can also compare them to the other tables to see if it's consistent with other subjects, with other students going through the same process of migrating between the fifth and sixth grade.
So you're saying what the table would look like is you would have partially on the bottom, the number of students that moved from partially to approaching, the number of students that moved in the 5 rows of approaching. I don't do these tables. However,
Okay.
I will reach out to Lincoln and ask
Yeah.
them if they can start to do that for us, because that's a lot.
And charge them a hefty fee, because I think it would be really
We
beneficial.
have a
to-
free workshop this next week. I'm not sure I can get anything else.
Because what happens with some of these percentages is that as the population size goes down, they start to fluctuate. And they start to fluctuate wildly. And you're starting to freak out when you start looking at just percentage numbers, and you're like, what are we doing wrong? But you don't notice that the population size has decreased for this group, and they probably went to meetings, which is good.
Absolutely. I mean, I looked at one student and I didn't realize that the student actually had gone from meeting to exceed. And I
Right.
didn't originally have him in my data set because I didn't notice that. And so it looked even worse, but it wasn't because it was another student up there.
Mr. Bureau?
I don't have suggestions on how to make this presentation better. I think today is a fabulous day at Oradell Public School. I loved opening my Facebook and seeing how highly we were ranked in the state. It made me very proud to be a parent here and a board member here. So we're doing something right. In the past, I've been very poo-poo about Lincoln. That's not, that's well known. This actually really impressed me. I love the way, because I felt like it was, oh boy, we're having them sit through another test instead of being taught that day. And I see this here, and it's not just a test that they took and it moved on. I like at the end the way you presented it with the teachers in the 3 classes. You blacked out the names here, and then you could really see, and then you gave an example of what question did these kids not get right. And for me, it made it more concrete, and to see how it's not just data, but it's actually used and processed, and let's make decisions from there. So for me, this was really helpful, and again, a great day at Oradell Public School. So thank you. This was really helpful. Thank you.
My goal today was to show you how we were using the data. Because the fact is, you've set a goal that I won't know anything about until next July. So all I can do is show you what we're doing. We can be unhappy with things right now, but we can't change them. We won't know what's changed until that day in July when Dr. Ansel sends me the Fargo test score thing.
Speaking of that not knowing, that on page 9, these are these are the predicted proficiencies. These are grouped as the whole amount. Does Lincoln provide you the ability to group in the same way you've done the others, the actuals? Because that's what would be valuable, I think, for you and for us.
So go back and see, did Lincoln predict a student would pass and whether or not
So
they passed?
you know who the students are. You know who the students are that we're meeting and pulling out them, just like you did on the park. Do you have that ability, or?
Yes.
But that's not presented here, right? Or is there a way I can see it?
I'm not quite sure. Can you clarify again?
Sure. So, again, the goal is to have the students that are meeting, you know them,
Yes.
and you're moving them up. That first set of charts that you have show that clearly. But when we're looking at the proficiency data, we're looking at the whole set. We're not able to see, is it predicting that that's going to happen?
Well, that's what this table does. So what the teachers looked at in Lincoln, right here, what it's doing is, it's predicting whether or not they're going to pass Lincoln. They don't have a predictability for whether or not they're going to be exceeding. They do for exceeding and passing, but what Lincoln does is they add an extra number in between. So we have 5 categories in the state, correct? We have 6 in Lincoln.
Okay.
So that's what makes it a little hard for Lincoln to do that.
Okay.
But what Lincoln's doing right here is it's taking all the students' numbers that Lincoln has for them. So everything they have from 3rd grade Lincoln to 2nd grade Lincoln to 3rd grade Lincoln to 3rd grade Park, and it's deciding based on all of that historical data whether or not they predict the student will pass. They do underpredict them, I'm going to tell you that.
Any other questions? Please, Bozios. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And then lastly, as part of my report, the data for February, total student enrollment for February was 765, and the student attendance rate for the month of February was 97.84. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
May I ask a question about that attendance report?
Okay.
I just was wondering, Dr. Ethel, have we ever checked the attendance percentage, like we had off Monday, Tuesday in February, and then for the rest of the week, if our attendance was abnormally low or anything like that?
So you're asking me specifically about if we're closed because of inclement weather, does that have an impact?
No, we had already, I'm sorry, you just said that February, yeah, the break, where we had off for Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I apologize if I wasn't clear.
That's
But I know in previous years, we've had different variations of the February break, so I was just curious what that data was.
Yes, so we have looked at that impact. Haven't done that for this year, but we did do that last year. And I want to go back and reread it again because I don't want to trust my memory to tell you all the conclusions, but I don't recall that there was a big variance. It was really pretty small. But I'll go back and find the report here.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think I asked the same question last year, so it's in there somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Dr. Ethel? Thank you. All right. Michelle, we've been waiting all night.